Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Volpe Creates show for August 11th, 2026. I am Chris, and this is episode something I've already forgotten. I should have been prepared before I started, but it has been a couple of weeks, as you know, so I am not at full, full capacity, full brain capacity, so I apologize for that. I believe we're episode 41, if I am not mistaken. So we're episode 42. Apologies. Hopefully you all are doing well today. I got a topic I want to discuss because I think it'll be interesting. But before that, I do want to remind folks that, I am a game developer. I'm also someone who has helped the video game industry here in Ohio in the Midwest. And we have a couple cool things going on. So the first is that we have GDEX, which is the Gaming Professional Game Dev Community Expo and Conference that I throw in Columbus, Ohio. That is happening October 15th through the 18th. You can find more at www.thegdex.com. Don't forget the. But we are doing a lot of promotion. We're going to be doing a lot of announcements. We're like 64 days away from that show, which blows my mind. I just cannot believe that we are this close to the show and we have so much work to do, but it's going to be a really, really great experience. And it is an opportunity for folks that are in the gaming industry to connect to others, to, possibly connect to investors and publishers and things like that. So, it is a rough time in the industry right now. And so it's really valuable to have folks out. Then we also have the sandbox.space. If you go to the sandbox.space/Discord, you can join our Discord. It's a free professional development community. And so, it's an opportunity, again, to connect with people and to be involved in the industry. If you are so interested, I also teach, and it's one of the things that I tell my students very regularly, but connecting to folks, building that network is super important. And it's one of those things where the sooner you start doing it, the better. Because once you get that network built out, then finding a job, finding access to resources, or even just having somebody to bounce ideas off of is really important. There's a sort of idea in professional development that you should have 3 people in your life, somebody that is the same age as you, that you can kind of talk to and connect with about the career. Obviously, this is within your career, anything you're doing. Somebody older than you that you can learn from, that can be a mentor, and then somebody younger than you that you can teach. So try to find those 3 people, and it will really help you sort of accelerate in your career. But today, I would like to talk about, this is from gamesindustry.biz, as is a lot of my articles, because I think they do some really good stuff. But this is Remedy reports revenue declines in quarter 2 and half year 1 as it prepares for Control Resonant launch. CEO says focus remains on bringing an outstanding game to the market and letting the results speak. So just real fast, we'll kind of go through some of this stuff and then we'll talk about it. So just real quick, the numbers. Q2 2026 had a revenue of 10.2 million, it looks like euros, which is down about 40%. Oh, also, side note, there's a big storm going on outside. So if I lose my internet connection or anything, I apologize. Hey, Pumps, here's Pumpkin. And then it had an operating loss of 3.9 compared to 0.5 million loss in the same quarter last year. And then for H1, $23.3 million revenue, which was down 23.1, and then an operating loss of 2.9 million compared to the 0.8 million profit in 2023. I'm not sure why they didn't list 2024's or 2025's numbers. They listed 2023, so that's kind of interesting. But okay, real fast. Remedy attributed its Q2 and H1 revenue declines to the prior launch of FBC Firebreak during the comparison period, increased marketing for Resident. So, excuse me. Obviously, having losses is not great. Remedy has gone through a couple leadership changes over the past few years, and they released Alan Wake 2, which was moderately successful, and we're seeing these losses. They say due to Firebreak, which was not a particularly good release. I think that a lot of people enjoyed that game, that kind of played it, but it wasn't enough to really move the needle. Again, it's one of these, we're seeing this a lot. Sony's really suffered from this also with Bungie's new release of Marathon, but then also, oh man, I totally forgot the name of the game, which is probably not a good sign for that game. That's probably why. Oh my Lord, what is it? The game that they spent like $400 million on, and then it came out and it was like out for like 2 weeks, and then they closed it down. Oh my Lord, begins with a C. It'll come to me. I keep thinking Control because I'm staring at Remedy stuff, but Remedy. Well, before I get into my thoughts, let me finish this, because I think once I start talking, I'm just going to ramble for a while. So this says pre-orders for Resident, quote, opened with healthy momentum, end quote, and ranked among the top 3 pre-order PlayStation games in the U.S., Germany, and Brazil. Okay, that's good. Our data indicates, this is a quote, our data indicates the game is tracking well against comparable titles in its launch window. In a competitive autumn window, we believe the distinctiveness and quality of the game will make it stand out, end quote. So I think that's really important too. Let me go back. So releasing Firebreak was a financial loss for them. And I think it was a shame that they tried to create, I'm not against these, continuing like live service titles, multiplayer titles, but I don't think that's what Remedy is good at. Nor do I think, baby, be nice to Pumpkin. Nor do I think that's what Remedy wants to do, right? So, hold on one second. Say hi to baby. Here's baby girl. And so, they ended up spending a lot of time and money on this title. It reminds me kind of a lot, in a weird way, of the Final Fantasy 15 multiplayer game that they made, which was actually really fun and really cool, but didn't really catch on. I played it for a while. It wasn't super like as deep as other games, but it had a lot of neat stuff in it. Really enjoyed it. But Remedy makes these really interesting kind of trippy single player experiences. And so, diving off, I just feel like everybody thinks like the big money is in these live service games. But 1, they're expensive to make. 2, they're expensive to maintain because you have to create new content for them all the time. And then 3, there are, within that sort of sphere of live service multiplayer games, people kind of already have what they like. And there was an article that came out, I don't know, maybe it was last year, where a lot of gamers these days, they have like one game that they just keep coming back to, and it tends to be like the live service game, like your Warcraft or maybe Minecraft or, something like that. And so it's really hard to break into that space because people kind of already have what they like for their go-to multiplayer game. And, again, it's just not what Remedy does. I think they make really awesome, interesting single-player experiences. And I think they're one of the most creative developers out there. And so, that's kind of like the big part with like Firebreak. But then this thing is they're launching in autumn. Autumn's going to be a very busy period because Grand Theft Auto is launching in November, late November. A lot of devs, studios have either moved their games into back into the, I guess it would be forward into the fall space, or back into later in winter, possibly January, February. So it's going to be a very competitive space, and I worry that Control and Remedy games just don't kind of have the gusto, unless this game is really amazing. All right, now I got Pumpkin up here. Unless this game's just really incredible, I just worry that it may not be able to hit the numbers that it's going to need to hit. And I think that's a shame because looking at these, they're operating at a loss. They need this game to be successful. So they said that it's tracking really well. And they said, what was it? US, Germany, and Brazil. So cool. Combined with the release quote, combined with the release window becoming slightly less crowded since our original reveal, we remain confident in our positioning. So that's probably a reflection of the titles that are moving into next year. So instead of trying to come out in fall during a competitive period, and then I think there's a real worry with a lot of these titles. And again, this is where like the live service ones can be really tricky, that when GTA 6 comes out, like everyone's just going to jump onto that. And so you're looking at probably, end of November through, I would guess, through Christmas, through the end of the year, that most folks are going to be in Grand Theft Auto world, and they're not going to be wanting other titles or playing other titles. So, we'll see. But revenue from the game sales and royalties totaled $3.8 million, down from revenue from game sales, not the game sales. So this is game sales in total. And royalties totaled 3.8 million euros, down from 9.5 million in the same period last year, which included contributions from Firebreak and initial subscription service accruals. Again, a subscription title. Sales of 2019's Control increased in quarter two, supported by ongoing marketing for Control Resident. So that's another thing too, is I wouldn't be surprised if, and again, we're in mid-August here, not much time. I think the game comes out September 19th. I don't know if it says it on here. But you probably will see a bump in Control 1 sales because people will be excited for Control 2 and want to play it. But, yeah. Sales of 19 increased. Alan Wake 2 exceeded 3 million lifetime sales, and royalties from both titles and Alan Wake Remastered were generated solely from consumer sales with no platform deal accruals. So, 3 million lifetime sales is good. It really does surprise me, and I guess I'm part of the problem. I own the game, so they got my money, but I didn't beat it. So I think I'm going to try to go back and play that now so that I can be ready for it when Control Resident comes out. So I think that'll be the next game that I play. But 3 million sales, is good, but like it's not amazing, right? And Remedy's not the biggest studio, but they do have, as you see, they have some overhead, and they're spending their money on marketing and prepping for Resident. So it's got some costs. I just don't know if Alan Wake 2 selling 3 million units, is that enough to move the needle in a way that they need? Like, does it give them enough overage, enough coverage for Control Resident? And I don't know. So like, again, that's one of the things, like a quarterly loss, like, yeah, you don't want to lose money, but like a quarterly loss during a heavy development period is not uncommon. And if you've got your previous title was able to create enough funding to allow that loss, then okay, that's fine. And the hope that Control Resident, and the thing that I'm curious about, like in my mind, as just somebody who kind of keeps an eye on this stuff, I wouldn't call me an analyst or anything, but just as somebody who kind of keeps an eye on these things and talks about them and does a daily show and helps developers and whatever. The Alan Wake series seems like a larger, well-known property than Control does. So if Alan Wake is only getting 3 million, I say only 3 million is good, but let's say Alan Wake's only getting 3 million of its life during its lifetime sales, it just doesn't feel like Control Resident will be able to beat that. Now, that being said, there's a lot of really positive talk about Alan Wake 2, and so and Control is a more action-oriented like game. I think it's a little bit easier to kind of describe and sell than Alan Wake games are, which are like more psychological horror and thriller and like trippier. And there's a lot of like, it's like a David Lynch movie, like Twin Peaks, right? Like, it's for anybody who's watched Twin Peaks, you can kind of give the high level about what Twin Peaks is, but like, detective show about going to a place, investigating murders, that kind of stuff. Like that's not really what the show and Alan Wake is about, even though it presents itself kind of as those things. So anyway, I think Control might be easier to sell, and it's also, again, a more action-y game, which is, I talk to a lot of folks including like friends of mine, that just the way that they view what they see on the screen is really interesting, because they'll automatically dismiss stuff that is, doesn't come across as, immersive, or have the sort of gameplay loop that they're looking for, which I think does a disservice. We can talk about that later. We'll talk about it now. I think it does a disservice to gaming in general, because there's so many amazing games out. And so, like, a friend of mine, for example, he doesn't really like it when numbers show up on screen, like damage numbers when you're hitting something. He feels like it really breaks the immersion and takes him out of it. And so he doesn't play games that have that. I've just gotten him to play Clair Obscur, so I'm very curious if he'll like Clair Obscur, because it does have the damage numbers on there. But like, from me, someone growing up in the 80s and 90s, that was a very common thing, particularly in RPGs. And so I don't mind it, even though I could see how it could maybe break the immersion. But also, for certain types of games, like, that is an important part of the process. What do we got? Assaultivai here just dropped a follow. Thank you very much. Thanks for being on the show. Okay, so development fees from Resident and the Max Payne 1 and 2 remake total $6.4 million compared to $7.4 million in the previous period. Okay. And then, quote, along the road to our largest and most ambitious release to date with Resident, our existing catalog has provided a solid backbone, and our other development projects advanced in line with plans, with our new project moving into production readiness. So it seems like they've got plans for future stuff, and they're working on it, and that's great. Quote, early signals and commercial metrics give us confidence in Resident's potential, but our focus remains on bringing an outstanding game to market and letting the results speak. I personally see the game getting stronger week by week, and our marketing accelerates further into the third quarter. So, end quote. So that to them means that they feel like they're going to be able to really push this title. And it's true, sometimes titles that have a lukewarm or maybe even a good reception at first, they build on themselves. So we saw that with Obsession, which came out in theaters a little while ago. That movie ended up gaining in box office sales week over week for the first few weeks. And I believe, someone correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's either from first week to second week or from second week to third week. You want to get down, sweetie? Say bye. That Obsession is the only movie to have done that since E.T. So, these things do happen, right? And that's great. It's a hard thing to count on, though. Like, you generally, your first 30 days are going to be your biggest sales bump. But if the game comes out, it really reviews well. People really like it. We saw this with The Last of Us. The Last of Us came out to like really stellar reviews when it originally was released on PlayStation 3, and that allowed it to build this momentum. Even from someone like me who's in the games industry, who plays a lot of games. I didn't have a PS3 at the time. I borrowed a PS3 and I bought a copy of Last of Us. Even though I don't own a PS3, I bought a copy of The Last of Us so I could play it. So it is possible that if Control Resonant really gels with a lot of people, and the early previews have been really strong. Like, people have been saying it's really fun. It's doing some interesting stuff. The combat feels nice. So, hopefully that's all well and good, and that's what's happening. But I just kind of want to talk about that, because I think that the world is a better place, and I think the video game industry is a better place with developers like Remedy in it. Even though there's a ton of developers, if you look at the mid to large size studios, there really aren't that many devs that are trying to do interesting, like, thoughtful psychological things. A lot of the games that we get are very similar in tone and ideas. And so I think that Remedy is a special company, and I want to see them be successful. I don't need them to be gangbusters. And I think having a gigantic success where they sell like 20 million units and they make, a couple $1 billion or whatever, I'm sure they would love that. It would be a breath of fresh air for them and take some stress off of them. But I think a studio like Remedy, I think, functions really well in the trenches. And I think getting too much money might really limit them, in the sense that they will feel obligated to make these larger and larger titles that won't necessarily work as well with the way that they like to construct stories and gameplay. And we've seen that before. So I want them to be successful. I want them to be around for a long time. I think that they make really interesting, great stuff, even though it is niche. I liked Control. I liked Alan Wake, but I realized both those games are not really everybody's cup of tea. And that's okay, But I want there to be studios making those kinds of things. Hideo Kojima is another one of those devs that, was able to turn his success into something that allows him to do interesting, weird, unique stuff. Death Stranding 2 is another game that I need to play. But so that was just my thoughts when I saw that Remedy was operating at a loss, that this could be a really pivotal moment for them, and I bet they're feeling it. I don't know how much money they have in cash reserves or anything like that, but I bet they're really feeling it, that they need Resonant to be financially successful for them. So I hope the game is great, and I hope that they can benefit from it. But yeah, all right. Well, thanks everybody for jumping on. Thanks for the new follow. Appreciate it. A reminder, I do this every day at 9:30 Eastern time on Twitch. So twitch.tv/volpecreates. And then I also post these videos onto my YouTube channel. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you tomorrow.